For decades, archaeologists have marveled at the sheer skill of prehistoric builders, but recent discoveries have left experts unsettled. Across several sites, deep in rugged landscapes, massive granite bunkers have been unearthed, structures so perfectly cut, so immaculately polished, that their very existence raises disturbing questions. These aren't crude shelters hacked with stone tools, they are precision-engineered chambers carved from some of the hardest rock on Earth. Their smooth, mirror-like walls defy the primitive technology traditionally attributed to ancient societies. Even more shocking, new evidence suggests these bunkers weren't merely dwellings or storage spaces. They may have been built for purposes far darker, purposes that align uncomfortably with ancient legends of catastrophe, war, and survival. Granite is no ordinary stone. It's one of the toughest natural materials, requiring modern diamond-tipped tools to shape efficiently. Yet these prehistoric bunkers, dating back thousands of years, show signs of advanced polishing and uniform cuts that no hammerstone or chisel of the time could achieve. Some walls are so flat they appear machined, reflecting torchlight with unnatural clarity. In places, the corners meet at flawless right angles, like the work of architects with access to blueprints and specialized equipment. For years, mainstream historians dismissed such anomalies as exaggerations or tricks of erosion. But now, as more sites are documented, the pattern has become impossible to ignore. What unsettles researchers most is the scale. These bunkers are not small caves modified by hand. They are vast underground complexes, with corridors stretching deep into bedrock, chambers large enough to hold dozens of people, and ventilation shafts carved with geometric precision. Some even contain niches that look engineered to fit massive doors or sliding panels. Whoever built these structures was not simply surviving. They were planning, preparing, and protecting themselves against something. Recent studies using ground-penetrating radar and 3D scanning have revealed further details that deepen the mystery. The walls of some bunkers are coated with a sheen consistent with high-temperature polishing, suggesting heat or friction at levels beyond what simple fire or hand tools could generate. Traces of quartz dust embedded in the polish hint at grinding techniques unknown to the prehistoric toolkits we've documented. To modern eyes, these are unmistakable signatures of advanced technology. And yet they date back to periods when humanity was supposedly just emerging from stone and bone. If these granite bunkers were the work of early humans, then they had skills and methods we cannot explain. If they were the work of a lost civilization, then our timeline of history is dangerously incomplete. And if, as some researchers whisper, they were constructed in preparation for global catastrophes, then they hold secrets about ancient fears that might still be relevant today. The unsettling part is not only that these bunkers exist, but what they suggest: a world where ancient peoples may have possessed knowledge we have long forgotten. As archaeologists sift through evidence of machining, heat treatment, and engineering on a scale that shouldn't exist, one chilling question grows louder. Just what were they preparing for in these granite vaults, polished with technology far ahead of their time? The deeper investigators study these granite bunkers, the more unsettling the details become. Granite is unforgiving. Even with modern equipment, cutting, shaping, and polishing it requires diamond-edged saws, industrial grinders, or lasers. Yet, within these prehistoric complexes, the stone is so smooth and precise that some sections shine like glass. Archaeologists, kneeling with their flashlights, have seen their own reflections looking back at them as though the walls had been polished. To explain such perfection using only primitive stone tools is nearly impossible. Conventional theory insists that ancient builders relied on hammerstones, chisels, sand, and water to grind away at hard rock. While this could shape granite, it could not produce flat planes or mirror finishes. Attempts by experimental archaeologists to replicate the surfaces with primitive methods failed miserably, leaving jagged, uneven marks instead of polished smoothness. Some researchers speculate that abrasive techniques with quartz sand and copper tools might have been scaled up, but even then, the labor required would have been astronomical, measured in decades of endless grinding for just a single chamber wall. How, then, did entire complexes come to exist? The geometry adds another layer of mystery. Corners meet at precise right angles, and long corridors maintain uniform width over dozens of feet. Measurements show tolerances within millimeters, comparable to modern architectural standards. Some shafts are perfectly aligned with celestial events, hinting at astronomical knowledge intertwined with engineering. Others are designed with acoustic properties, amplifying sound within the chambers. These are not the random or crude efforts of survival shelters. They are evidence of intentional design. One theory suggests the use of heat-based techniques. Geological analysis has revealed discolorations on certain walls as though exposed to intense, localized heating. Could ancient builders have discovered a method to superheat granite, softening it enough to shape before it cooled and hardened again? No documented primitive culture is known to have done this, but traces of vitrification, stone partially melted by heat, have been found in ancient fortresses around the world. If similar methods were used here, it suggests knowledge of fire and heat manipulation far beyond what we credit to prehistory. Another possibility is that these bunkers represent the remnants of an older, lost civilization, one equipped with advanced tools and methods that vanished in antiquity. The problem with this idea is not lack of evidence, but its implications. If true, it would mean our accepted timeline of human progress, from stone to bronze to iron to industry, is incomplete, and that sophisticated technology existed thousands of years earlier than believed. Mainstream historians resist this conclusion, fearing it would unravel too many established narratives. But the bunkers themselves stand as silent contradictions to the official story. What truly disturbs researchers, however, is not just the how, but the why. Why would prehistoric builders devote unimaginable effort to hollowing out granite bunkers, polishing them to near perfection, and sealing them deep underground? These are not decorative tombs like those of later civilizations. They lack inscriptions, treasure, or ritual markers. Their design is defensive, functional, and enduring. Some contain air shafts suggesting long-term occupation. Others feature sealed doorways hinting at secure storage. They were not built to impress. They were built to last. The prevailing hypothesis is survival. Perhaps these bunkers were constructed as refuges against catastrophic events, floods, invasions, or cosmic disasters. Legends from multiple cultures speak of great calamities, floods that drowned entire lands, fire from the skies, winters without end. Could these granite chambers be the archaeological fingerprints of those fears? Built to withstand nature's fury, they might represent humanity's earliest attempts at disaster preparedness. And yet, there is a darker interpretation. Some researchers argue these were not bunkers for the many, but for the few. Elites, rulers, or priests preserving themselves while ordinary people perished above. Their scale suggests organization, authority, and resources far beyond small tribal communities. Whoever commanded such labor did so with power and purpose. If this is true, these granite vaults tell a story not of communal survival, but of control, secrecy, and fear. As the evidence grows, historians face an uncomfortable choice. Either cling to the traditional timeline or accept that something extraordinary was happening in prehistory. Something polished into granite with technology no one was supposed to have. The question that haunts archaeologists most is not just how these granite bunkers were built, but why. The construction itself defies conventional explanations. Polished granite walls, precision, cut corridors, and sealed chambers deep underground. But the clues hidden inside suggest something even more unsettling about their purpose. These were not ceremonial tombs decorated with art and offerings, nor simple shelters scratched out by desperate communities. They were deliberate, highly engineered spaces designed to withstand forces far beyond the ordinary struggles of daily life. Inside several of the excavated bunkers, archaeologists found peculiar features that hint at prolonged human use. Ventilation shafts, sometimes angled in ways that maximize airflow, suggest the builders intended to occupy these chambers for extended periods. Narrow corridors lead into larger communal spaces, some of which are acoustically tuned so that even the smallest sounds echo unnaturally. Niches carved into walls may have held lamps or torches, while deep grooves in the floor look suspiciously like channels, possibly for water drainage or even waste disposal. These details point not to ritual spaces, but to survival bunkers, designed with the grim anticipation of catastrophe. Even stranger are the sealed passageways. In several complexes, corridors lead abruptly to blocked stone doors, fitted so tightly that even modern tools struggle to pry them open. What lay beyond is still a mystery. Archaeologists debate whether they conceal storage rooms, further living quarters, or something far darker. Ground-penetrating scans suggest hollow spaces behind these doors, but excavation has stalled due to the risk of collapse. Still, the mere presence of such engineering, doors within granite, speaks to planning and foresight on a scale that clashes with everything we thought we knew about prehistoric communities. What catastrophe were these people expecting? Theories abound. Some historians argue that these bunkers were constructed in response to natural disasters, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or the cyclical flooding that ancient myths so often describe. Others point to cosmic events, meteor impacts, firestorms, or prolonged winters caused by atmospheric upheaval. Ancient oral traditions from around the world tell of great floods, burning skies, or days of darkness that nearly wiped out humanity. Could these bunkers be the material echoes of those stories, built by communities who witnessed calamity firsthand and sought to shield themselves from it happening again? The darker interpretation is that the bunkers were not built for the many, but for the few. Their complexity and labor demands suggest a ruling elite had the power to command entire populations into service. The bunkers may have functioned as fortresses of privilege, where leaders, priests, or chosen families could retreat while the rest of society was left to perish outside. In this reading, the smooth granite walls and sealed chambers are not symbols of collective survival, but of inequality sharpened to its most brutal form. This would explain why so many bunkers show evidence of abandonment, empty, silent, stripped of artifacts. They may have been used only briefly, then left behind after their builders either died or no longer needed them, and yet traces of occupation remain. In some chambers, soot marks linger on ceilings where torches once burned. Fragments of primitive pottery, scattered tools, and even faint scratch marks suggest human presence within. In one site, faint engravings were found carved into the granite, not decorative but functional, tally marks, perhaps counting days or weeks in confinement. The thought of entire communities living underground in polished granite chambers, waiting out a disaster above, unsettles even the most seasoned researchers. Historians fear what these structures imply. If prehistoric people truly had the ability to design, carve, and polish bunkers in granite, then their technological capacity was far greater than we admit. If they built them in anticipation of catastrophe, then they knew something we have forgotten, an ancient cycle of disaster written into memory, carried into legend, and buried in stone. And if they built them for survival of the few, then the story of human inequality is older and more chilling than we ever imagined. The polished granite bunkers stand as monuments to an unspoken terror in prehistory. They are not just shelters, they are messages, carved in stone, warning us that ancient people faced something so devastating, so unimaginable, that they turned to the hardest rock on earth to shield themselves from it. The question now is not whether they succeeded, but what exactly they were hiding from. When archaeologists confront the granite bunkers polished with impossible precision, the question of what they were built to resist looms larger than the mechanics of their construction. The sheer effort to carve, polish, and seal entire underground complexes into one of the hardest stones on Earth suggests that the builders were preparing for more than raids from rival tribes or seasonal storms. These were not ordinary shelters. They were vaults of survival, and the threats they were designed to withstand may have been catastrophic in scale. The first theory, rooted in geology, points to natural cataclysms. Ancient communities lived at the mercy of their environment, and history is filled with evidence of disasters powerful enough to drive people underground. Earthquakes along fault lines, volcanic eruptions releasing fire and ash, or sudden flooding from swollen rivers could all destroy surface settlements. Yet the granite bunkers suggest preparation for more than regional disasters. Their walls were sealed, polished to resist water seepage, and constructed deep into bedrock. Hints of people bracing against devastation that could last weeks or months. This aligns with global flood myths, from Mesopotamia's Epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical Noah's Ark, and even stories from indigenous cultures worldwide. If these tales carry kernels of truth, then perhaps entire societies remembered ancient deluges that swept away civilizations, leaving only those who could hide underground to tell the story. Another explanation lies in the skies. Some scientists speculate that the bunkers were a response to cosmic events, meteors, firestorms, or solar flares capable of devastating life on Earth. Geological records confirm that Earth has been struck repeatedly by celestial objects, sometimes with catastrophic results. Around 12,800 years ago, for example, evidence suggests a comet impact may have triggered the Younger Dryas, a sudden return to Ice Age conditions. If early humans had oral traditions recalling such cataclysms, they may have sought to protect themselves in chambers carved from the toughest stone available. The mirror, smooth granite walls, resistant to heat and pressure, could reflect an ancient attempt to endure fire raining from the sky. A third, more unsettling theory ties the bunkers to cycles of cosmic radiation or atmospheric collapse. Some researchers point to the ventilation shafts and air systems as signs that the builders anticipated long-term occupation underground. This implies a threat not just of floods or quakes, but of poisoned skies, whether from volcanic ash, dust clouds from impacts, or other atmospheric disruptions. Stories of dark suns and red skies in ancient mythologies could reflect memory of such events. In these interpretations, the granite bunkers become humanity's earliest fallout shelters, designed to keep out not only water and fire, but also air thick with death. Yet there is another possibility. One historians hesitate to voice openly. Perhaps the bunkers were not only defenses against nature, but also against humanity itself. If ancient societies reached levels of power and conflict we have forgotten, these chambers could have been fortresses built to outlast wars fought with technologies lost to time. The evidence of vitrification, stone partially melted by extreme heat, found in other ancient sites raises the chilling possibility of advanced weaponry, whether fire-based or something we cannot comprehend. In that light, the granite bunkers resemble the Cold War bunkers of our own era, hiding places against human-made apocalypse. What unites all these theories is the scale of fear they imply. These were not modest shelters against storms but monumental undertakings requiring labor, planning, and foresight. That prehistoric societies invested such energy into preparing for survival suggests they knew catastrophe intimately. Their myths, passed down through generations, may be echoes of real events that scarred the memory of humanity. What terrifies historians is not just that these people faced disaster, but that they might have expected it to return, part of a cycle repeating through the ages. Walking through the tunnels today, one feels that sense of dread. The silence is heavy, as if the stone itself remembers what it was built to resist. Polished granite walls, flawless and cold, seem less like architecture and more like warnings carved into the earth. The bunkers whisper of an ancient knowledge that survival sometimes depends not on building cities under the sun, but on hiding from the wrath of the world in the deepest stone. And this is what unsettles modern scholars most. If prehistoric people prepared on such a scale, then perhaps they knew something we have lost. Perhaps their bunkers are not relics of irrational fear, but blueprints of experience, lessons carved in granite, warning us that the disasters they endured are not finished, but waiting. The discovery of polished granite bunkers cut with an accuracy that defies conventional tools forces us to confront a possibility historians have long resisted, that prehistory may have been far more advanced and far more perilous than our timelines suggest. These are not the rough shelters of tribes clinging to survival. They are engineered vaults, structures requiring vision, planning, and techniques that sit uneasily in the Stone Age. Their very existence undermines the neat progression we are taught from crude stone tools to bronze, from bronze to iron, from iron to industry. Something about these bunkers suggests interruptions, lost chapters of history erased by catastrophe. For mainstream historians, this is terrifying. If these granite vaults were carved and polished by hands thousands of years before such work should have been possible, then either our ancestors possessed knowledge now lost to us, or we have misunderstood the flow of civilization itself. Neither answer is comforting. A lost technology implies a forgotten age of mastery that collapsed so thoroughly that only rumors and legends survived. A misunderstood history implies our current models of human development are deeply flawed, leaving us blind to repeating cycles of rise and collapse. Both explanations carry weight, and both raise a chilling question: what destroyed that earlier knowledge, and could it happen again? Inside the bunkers, archaeologists find not wealth, not art, but silence. The smooth granite chambers, stripped of signs of ritual, speak instead of function. Air shafts, drainage grooves, and sealed passageways all hint at habitation designed for endurance, not display. They tell the story of a people who were not simply living but hiding, whether from nature's fury, cosmic events, or human violence. They expected devastation so severe that only the hardest stone could shield them. That fear is written into the very walls, polished to perfection. Historians fear the implications because these bunkers seem to align with myth. Ancient stories from cultures scattered across the globe describe floods, fire from the sky, darkness that lasted for generations. Once dismissed as folklore, these tales now appear in eerie harmony with the evidence. Perhaps the bunkers were built during those very events, catastrophes that ended one world and gave birth to another. If so, then the bunkers are more than shelters. They are monuments of survival, the last echoes of civilizations nearly erased. The chilling truth is that we have only uncovered a fraction of these sites. Ground-penetrating scans hint at vast networks still hidden beneath the earth. Some may remain sealed, their stone doors unopened for millennia. What lies within them, tools, knowledge, perhaps even remains, could rewrite history entirely. And that is what disturbs scholars most, that the more we uncover, the more our established history unravels. Each discovery makes the story of human progress less linear and more fragile, a path interrupted by disaster after disaster. But the fear does not stop with the past. If these bunkers were constructed in anticipation of repeating cycles, then what of our own age? The builders may have known patterns in nature, cosmic impacts, solar storms, geological upheavals that return on scales longer than recorded history. Their bunkers, polished in granite, may be warnings carved for us, telling us that what came before will come again. To historians, this is worse than the idea of lost civilizations. It means the disasters they feared may still be waiting for us, lurking just beyond the horizon of time. In the polished walls of prehistoric granite bunkers, We see not only skill beyond explanation, but fear beyond imagination. They are silent voices from the past, whispering that humanity has faced annihilation before and may again. Historians fear them because they force us to question everything we believe about progress, safety, and the permanence of civilization. If our ancestors went to such lengths to survive, then perhaps they knew a truth we have chosen to forget, that beneath the surface of history lies a cycle of destruction, and only those who prepare endure. The granite bunkers remain polished and cold, monuments of a forgotten terror, and their message is as haunting as it is clear. Civilizations rise, civilizations fall, but stone remembers. Standing in the shadow of these granite bunkers, historians cannot escape the sense that they are staring into a mirror held up by prehistory. The polished walls, the sealed doors, the haunting silence inside, everything about them suggests knowledge, purpose, and fear on a scale we are reluctant to admit. Each discovery forces us to ask not just what our ancestors knew, but what they endured, and perhaps most disturbingly, what they left behind as a warning. Some researchers argue these bunkers were built for survival against natural disasters, megafloods, impacts from the sky, or volcanic winters. Others see them as fortresses for elites, built to preserve power during collapses that erased entire societies. A few go further still, suggesting the precision of their construction points to a level of technology lost to time. The debate rages, but one truth cuts through it all. Whoever built them, they did not trust the surface of the world to keep them safe. Historians fear these granite vaults because they suggest cycles, disasters vast enough to drive humans underground, knowledge advanced enough to shape stone in ways we barely understand, and collapses severe enough to wipe clean almost all memory of what came before. If humanity once built such fortresses only to vanish into myth, then how secure can we be today? The bunkers sit silent, yet their message grows louder with every excavation. Civilizations may rise, and their achievements may shine, but when catastrophe comes, only stone endures. And perhaps that is the most terrifying lesson of all, that we are not the first to believe we have mastered the world. And we may not be the last to watch it slip away. Beneath the earth, carved into unforgiving granite, the bunkers remain. Their walls gleam with impossible polish, their corridors sealed with precision that should not exist in prehistory. They are not temples, not tombs, but vaults, built with fear, designed for survival, and in their silence they ask us questions we may not want answered. What knowledge did their builders possess to shape stone with such mastery? What terror drove them underground, away from the light of the sun? And most haunting of all, did they know a cycle of destruction that we have forgotten? Historians fear these bunkers because they do not fit into our comfortable timeline. They whisper of civilizations lost, of technologies erased, of disasters so immense that only polished granite could endure them. They remind us that progress is fragile, that what we think of as permanent may crumble in an instant. As we look at these ancient vaults, we see not just the past but a reflection of ourselves. For even now, in our modern age, we too build bunkers, hiding places against war, against disaster, against an uncertain future. The lesson carved in granite is clear: civilizations rise, civilizations fall, but stone remembers. And somewhere in that memory may lie a warning, not for them, but for us.